My name is Eric Park. I'm head of data and science here at Nextnet. I just wanted to show you the platform that we've been building here, which we think will really help life scientists, clinical scientists, basic science, meaningfully accelerate your research and achieve breakthroughs at a faster rate and with greater insight. Currently, our platform, Nextnet, has two major modules. The first one is the Copilot. It's a chat-based interface, but as I'll show you in a little bit, it draws upon a purpose-built knowledge graph of highly connected and peer-reviewed sources. Our second module is what we call the Explorer. This Explorer module is also designed to help life scientists explore hypotheses, discover evidence, but instead it presents the answer as a visual knowledge graph with the most relevant entities as well as relationships and connections among them. But let's go back to the Copilot. The easiest way to get started with the Copilot, since it's like a normal chat interface, is actually just to ask a question. So one question you might ask is, what should be considered when using GLP-1 receptor agonists with patients who have renal conditions? As I mentioned before, our Copilot tries to answer your specific questions and engage with your exploration by citing specific sources of evidence from published research articles. For example, in answer to our question, you'll notice a couple important things. First of all, the Copilot discusses the context of chronic kidney disease, but it also focuses on highlighting both the most important details, the most important measurements, and mechanisms. You'll see, for example, the discussion of effective glomerular flow rate as low as 15 mil per minute per 1.73 meters squared. And you'll also have, your other clinical biomarker levels. None of this information that Nexnet presents is intended as clinical guidance, but instead, we found that it's quite helpful for a lot of basic scientists to understand what the clinical considerations are and vice versa. At the bottom of every answer, what you'll see are the specific sources. We're actually in the process of transitioning this to inline sources, as you might see in a regular research article. But these sources can actually be interacted with much more directly than in a static bibliography. So when I click on a research article source, you'll see a small side pane menu here. Since it's a little cramped, what you can do is you can actually open up the full screen. You'll notice a few key things. The discussion, obviously, of the specific title, and you have the authors as well as the journal. The important thing to note, actually, is that within our knowledge graph, we've connected research articles to their authors and to the institution. So if I were to click on this researcher, I see what their affiliations are. I could even go to the university, for example. I see the number of work that they have, the sources that Nexnet has cataloged. You have references to external databases. For example, many of the authors have ORCID or ORCIDs, and you'll have citation information. If we go back for a second, you can use the arrows here as a browser type navigation system. What's most important is that not only do we identify the specific research articles of relevance to answering your biological questions, but we also identify the specific passages, the excerpts within each of these articles. So you'll see it's talking about glomerular hemodynamic reduction in albuminuria. It'll talk about GLP-1 receptor agonists. This is what was used to inform the answer. You have additional information below that talking about both the cited article, you have its citations, and also you have references to other external databases, NCBI, OpenAlex, TOI, and whenever possible, we actually have tried to source from open source and open access journals so that you can get to the full text as quickly, as directly as possible. In fact, right now, we're in the process of bringing this navigation experience into the Nexnet console so that you can then find semantic annotations and, we hope, read research articles with a level of depth and semantic connection that is just not possible right now. But let's go back to the actual conversation discussion. Below all of the sources, you'll also see a series of follow-up questions. These follow-up questions are specifically generated based upon a review of the supporting information above. So they're designed to help scientists who aren't necessarily 100% familiar with a research area, continue their investigation by asking what are the most relevant questions. And again, once you click on one of these, it starts this cycle of answer with citation and sourcing all over again. As I mentioned before, you have discussions of nephroprotective mechanisms through anti-inflammatory pathways. You have, for example, discussion of NF-kappa beta. And our constant goal is to refine the Copilot so that it will always provide specific, accurate information, but also at a level of depth and sophistication that experienced research scientists expect. Essentially, we want it to be high value information that is both actionable as well as offers new insights whenever possible. You have another set of sources here, but what you might notice is that as the conversation increases, the number of sources is going to start to build up, right? And so the easiest way to really look at all of the sources together, is to open up a dedicated sources pane. The dedicated sources pane not only has each individual research article throughout the context of this discussion, but it also has a specific it also details the specific number of excerpts from each research article that were used. You have some sorting options here, as well as some time-based filtration options if you are only looking for research articles published within a certain range. But our main objective here, and we'll soon have some export tools to many of the common bibliography services like EndNote or Mendeley, is for you to not only identify what are the most important research articles to help answer my investigation, but which are more informative and useful than others. Going back to the conversation, again, I could then continue with either questions that arise from my reading or additional follow-up questions. But let's take a step back and actually now go to the other module, which we call the Explorer. The Explorer, the best way to actually work with it is you can ask the same question as before. And fundamentally, both the Copilot and Explorer are drawing upon the same custom-built knowledge graph that we've designed and sourced from many of the open source databases that people use right now, NCBI, HGNC, and we're constantly expanding them. As I mentioned, you'll also see discussions, you'll also see that the answer is presented as a knowledge graph. So you'll see the most relevant entities. We have types such as diseases, drugs, genes here, as well as their what we call the edges in the graph or the connections. These represent important semantic relationships among all of these entities. It might seem a little bit limited here, but that's actually because the settings allow for greater degrees of complexity, but we can keep it pretty restricted right now just for the sake of clarity. If I were to click on one of these genes, for example, and again, opening it up, you'll see not only a discussion of the name. Whenever possible, we've tried to identify a summary or gene description of it. We have annotations about gene groups. We have annotations about specific protein classes as well as protein summaries. We have gene ontology terms for functional enrichment questions. And then in many of them, we actually have catalog sources and external sources as well. And so in the future, what we're actually planning is integrating a lot of our insights further by providing dynamic overview and summaries. And ultimately, we want it to come to an experience where researchers can think of this as dynamically generating a review article on the fly as you're trying to understand a specific question, as you're trying to understand a specific subject area. There are a lot more features, and probably the best way, if you're curious, is to create an account for free on the platform and start diving into it.